Welcome, everyone. My name is Kate Marand. I'm a program manager at the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development, and you are joining us today to learn more about new, free, legal, and financial resources for DC businesses, and we are so excited. You'll see up on the screen is a little bit about WebEx etiquette. I'll go ahead and just repeat that again for anyone who has just called in. We are recording today's session. If you do not want to have your video shown, you may choose to turn your camera off. If you have questions, we're going to ask you to make use of the chat. Please go ahead and type everything into the chat. We have several DSLBD staff. Shannon Taylor and Virginia Marie Roy are also here to help support that. And so we'll work to answer questions throughout, as well as release those questions to our presenters at the end. We're going to keep you on mute. If you are on the phone and on mute, you could send us an email at inno.ed, inno.ed@dc.gov if you're having any trouble. Just going to say really quickly, this session is about accessing legal advice, but nothing in this session itself is legal advice. It's an important reminder. So as we are jumping in through this session, we want to thank Start Small, Think Big, which is an organization that you're going to hear a lot about today for doing this presentation. We're not going to read what's on this slide because they're going to tell you all about it in a minute. This presentation is being supported by DSLBD's inno.ed team, where I talked about how to reach us. A little bit more information. We will share this slide deck afterwards along with a recording of this video in case you need to reach out. But what we really want to do is jump right into our topic. We have 3 guest speakers. It's a little bit about them here, but they have a whole presentation that they're going to walk you through. And so right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our team from Start Small, Think Big. I'm not sure who's talking first. Going to ask them to say their name when they say hello.
Hi, so my name is Alex Stepik, and I'm the Legal Program Director, and I head up our Rapid Response Program. Thank you so much to the team here, and especially to the DC Bar Pro Bono Justice Center, who in DC is a key element of this process. And I just want to say that while we don't speak for them, what we're talking about today, especially on the legal side, involves them, and we're always happy to help route questions their way as well. If we can go to the next slide. Great. So as you can see already, we have a number of great partners in the DC area that we're rolling out this rapid response to the current crisis to. And these partners are fantastic. We're always open to talking with more partners. Anyone who is working with entrepreneurs, small business owners, especially in underserved communities, are essentially our core partners. So please, at the end, if you are representing an organization like that, feel free to reach out either through anybody who you already know in DC, anyone who's presenting today, or directly to us if you have questions. So next slide, please. Great. So today I'll give you a quick introduction about who we are as an organization and introduce my colleagues. They'll handle most of the Q&A as a large part of this project is about technology and then just sort of the actual direct relationship building and support that we provide to small business owners currently and through this program, increasingly in the DC area. Next slide. Thanks. So Start Small, Think Big is a nonprofit organization that believes that access to high quality legal, financial management, and marketing services is an essential part of starting or growing a successful small business. And I should say that we believe that that is also an important part, if not a key part, of maintaining a small business through a crisis. So we're an entirely nonprofit organization that focuses on pairing entrepreneurs, usually who are positioned to grow their business, but now who are positioned to try to maintain their business and get back to the growth stage at the end of this. And we pair them with pro bono attorneys and financial and marketing experts, both in-house and through our extensive network of volunteers around the country with AmLaw 100 and Fortune 500 firms and companies. We work with underserved small business owners. Traditionally, 97% of our clients are women or minority-owned businesses. Right now, the net of what is an underserved small business is virtually all small businesses, anyone who isn't plugged into a traditional capital stream. And so we built the Rapid Response Program in response to that. Next slide, please. So the question, of course, is how we do that. What does it mean to offer those services? And we focus on those 3 core areas. So for legal assistance, we work on anything that is considered transactional law. We don't push into personally and for our organization into the litigation sphere. And the way that we do that is primarily by looking to assess the needs of our client base and then connecting them with expert pro bono counsel. That's volunteer attorneys, primarily at large law firms and corporate in-house departments that need to, that have the capacity and regularly work on issues like corporate governance, entity formation, contracts, even through commercial leasing. And in DC, we partner with the DC Bar Pro Bono Justice Center, who has a robust network of their own. And between us, we have access to basically every major law firm that works in DC or the DC area to make sure that if there is somebody who is available to volunteer to work with a small business, that they're able to connect with that small business owner to provide direct one-on-one legal counsel or, where necessary, work product. We also provide financial assistance that focuses on financial management. We don't provide accountants, and we don't provide tax advice, and we don't provide loans directly. But those are sort of the two sides of financial assistance, and we work on everything in the middle, assessing your capital needs, putting together cash flow statements, thinking about runway. Right now, understanding your runway and your capital needs are one of the most important things that a small business can do. And sometimes that means that they have to go all the way back to the beginning and clean up their books. So that's what we offer, is everything from getting everything in solid bookkeeping software and cleaning up your books so that you can assess what is happening, through figuring out what that means as far as your needs at the next level and helping you to assess what deals you can actually handle. There is a lot of capital available right now that wasn't before. Sometimes that's a wonderful thing. Most of the time, that's been a wonderful thing. But there are businesses that need to be very careful about whether or not they take something on as a loan versus a grant. And that's what our financial assistance attempts to do, is to help you analyze those questions in a totally objective fashion to give you the best possible advice that you can have there. We also provide marketing assistance and in the past, sales assistance, and we're working to figure out how to do that more effectively in the current remote structure. But essentially, it's a combination of pro bono marketing advisors and our own in-house team that has a fair amount of marketing experience as well, that helps you think about how do you do things like, in the current environment, pivot to digital, grow your brand awareness when you are now having to work on delivery sales as opposed to being able to do it in person. How do you maintain your interactions with your pre-existing client group and make sure that you convert them into digital agents? So this is all things that we try to assist with. And similar to our legal and financial assistance, we look to analyze the situation that you're in, identify which pieces we can help with, and then plug you in with the right professionals who are high quality at that particular thing. Next slide, please. Thank you. Of note, as always, is when we are giving general presentations, none of this is legal or tax advice. It's not a substitute for a consultation with an attorney or an accountant, but that is what we strive to do, is to put you into a meeting with an attorney so that you can actually get that level. Next slide, please. So what are we doing in response to COVID-19, the continuing disruption of business coming from a range of issues related to that and others, and what we see as the oncoming recovery period? We are doing a fair amount, and a lot of it has been focused in the DC area. Next slide, please. So one of the most important things that we've been doing has been helping small business owners to understand the grants and loans that are available. Sometimes that's with our financial team. Sometimes that is with attorneys who've been trained about what the lay of the land is and what's available, so that you can help to understand whether you're eligible to apply for them, what you'll need to put together to do that. It's a huge lift, emotionally, intellectually, to figure out what is out there and to determine whether or not it is available to you, and then how to go get it. We also attempt to help them figure out, what are these costs that come with pivoting to a new channel or product, where that cash flow can come from, and how to plan for it. We're also directly assisting with legal concerns. Webinars like this one, but digging into specific questions like commercial leasing in the age of COVID, addressing specific changes in the law that may help or hurt your particular business situation. And then actual meetings, wherever possible, with attorneys or with financial professionals that can dig into those questions. If you have a contract and you need to ask, is this something I still have to honor, or something that I can enforce and actually collect money from despite the shutdown? That is the kind of question that we want to set you up with attorneys to talk through, as well as these new questions that come up when you're doing things like shifting to digital, and that's one of the big ones, is that every new opportunity that we see digitally also comes with new risks and liabilities. And that's something that you want to make sure that you are thinking about and not just diving in head first. And we're here to provide some of that support, as well as with debt management, which is a complicated question. If you already had debt going into the crisis and you're having concerns about how to manage that debt, I'm sure you've heard some people are able to successfully renegotiate. Interest rates are at level. Some people are able to refinance. Often there's a combination of those two factors that go into it, and you may need to talk to a financial professional to determine whether or not you should take certain paths, as well as talk to a lawyer to determine whether or not you have the leverage to do that or the ability, if to walk away if there's a way to terminate those contracts or agreements, even if it is with debt. And then, as I said, working on turning all of our expertise around marketing and accessing sales channels into the current moment. And beyond, because there will be a time, and we see it coming right now, in fact, where there are staged reopenings. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean things are going to pop back to normal and all the customers that used to walk into your store are just going to be there, all of us, right? So what we need to do is think about how you can leverage this pivot to digital that we've all been forced into to maintain that client flow, maintain sales, and think about what the new normal is going to be. Next slide, please. So as far as accessing some of these resources, one way that you can start is by going to our website, www.startsmallthinkbig.org/COVID-19. There is a huge amount of material for you that covers changes in the law, issues related to loans and grants, ways that you can pivot to digital. We take all of these materials and we record them. We include the slide decks. We try to make sure that we have one-pagers and checklists. A lot of material is available there, as well as access to other actual public-facing events. That's our website /workshops-classes. So similar to today, where we're attempting to sort of give you an overview, we might dig into one of these areas and have a lot more Q&A, have more of a boot camp feel so that you can actually engage with experts while also hearing your peers and colleagues who are small business owners ask their questions and learn from each other. And then we are also promoting small businesses. One of the things you can do if you're a full client of ours, once you've gone through vetting and onboarded and shown that you are working to improve and grow your business with us, is that we are able to list you and say, please, the thousands of people that we have that are volunteers also like to purchase from us. They have our networks that they plug into. And so that's something that we just try to say, well, we don't have any need for that. We don't sell any goods. We're a nonprofit. Please buy from our clients. Please buy from small businesses. So we work not only to help you promote yourself, but we try to promote you as well. Next slide, please. So all of that is something that we would be doing no matter what. The rapid response program that we put together, this project is something that we built about 9.5 weeks ago, a little less, in direct response to the COVID shutdown for businesses. It was an attempt to connect people with things that they need as a small business owner as this entirely new situation arose, and attempt to make sure that it is adaptable over time so that whatever those 3 areas that we're used to serving, we can attempt to connect you with the right people. Next slide, please. So the big one, the number one thing that we're working on, this is something we work on with the DC Bar Pro Bono Justice Center, is putting together a large group of attorneys, making sure they have access to training and information so that they can use their skill set as lawyers to understand the constantly changing landscape around loans and grants, to make sure that they are helping to issue, spot, and look for risk for small business owners, and then to actually help you understand your options, and in certain cases, wherever appropriate, to actually help you submit applications for loans and grants. The biggest one has certainly been the Paycheck Protection Program. Before it was temporarily down, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And then there are also state and district-based programs that we attempt to hit on as much as possible as well. And then, of course, there are public and private grants beyond that. And then last and most increasingly relevant is the loan forgiveness programs. So we are developing, and we did a training, I believe, earlier today, and we'll continue to put those up as well for our attorneys and to our clients to say, let us help you understand what you need to do to comply, especially with the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program rules, so that you can, if at all possible, convert that loan into a grant so that you can walk away without having to pay that interest or pay that money back. And we're very close to rolling out a massive expansion of the legal consults so that you'll be able to sit down with a lawyer and say, here's what I'm doing. Am I doing it right? Am I ready to apply? And if I am, can you help me fill out this application? Now, we can't guarantee any result from that. No lawyer can guarantee any result, frankly. But what I can say is that this is a skill set that lawyers have, right? If there's anything that we know how to do, it's how to fill out paperwork to make an ask. And so that's what we're here to try to help with, is to help you make the best possible case for your loan forgiveness. Next slide, please. I would also say that one of the most important things, certainly getting money is valuable, but assessing the contracts that you have, as well as potentially renegotiating contracts or getting new contracts, is always imperative in a crisis or a recession. And so this is a place where we are attempting to make sure that you have access to that. Sometimes you have to move very fast. These days in particular, you may have an opportunity that disappears faster than normal. So our rapid response program, again, in this particular case, especially pairing with the DC Bar Pro Bono Justice Center, can set you up to get into a meeting generally within about a week from requesting assistance, and you can send on your contract to the lawyers. They'll be able to look at it, as long as it's not, a 400-page contract, or if it's a long contract, but you know which part you don't understand and would like to talk through, they'll be able to sit down, review it, and then get on the phone and answer your questions and talk about it. In some instances, they're even able to go through and mark it up and make revisions and help you directly, as a result, renegotiate. And in most cases as well, they'll be able to talk you through what they see as your business's leverage, your opportunities, and give you talking points. I just spoke to a client who was working on reviewing their commercial lease, and they came back and said, oh, it was unbelievable. They talked to me through the way the commercial leasing market works. I met with a lawyer who normally leases skyscrapers, and they were just talking about how to help my small bar. And as a result, that bar was able to get what I can't say exactly, but a really advantageous renegotiation of their lease so that they should be able to make it through the COVID shutdown, even though they're very far away from operating at regular capacity again. So that's true about any type of contract. It's true if you need to break a contract, if you want to breach it without getting into too much trouble, whether you want to exit it, whether you can use what is called a force majeure clause to say, well, the shutdown has prevented me from performing. Or if you just have an oral agreement and you're wondering, is this enforceable, or how can I enforce it? I never intended it to come to this, but now things are crazy and this person is just saying, prove it. These are all things where at the very least you can learn a lot in the meeting and often are able to solve the problem there. And if not, you're able to talk with Start Small, Think Big or the DC Bar Pro Bono Justice Center about potentially getting follow-up help if it's something that's broader and your business needs further support. But the first question is just getting to talk with experienced contract attorneys about the terms that you aren't sure about so that you can go in with more certainty and more leverage. Next slide, please. I already mentioned commercial lease review, so I'll go through this. As little as 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were almost exclusively talking with people who are trying to exit a commercial lease or renegotiate it. What I will say, and this is good news, is that more and more small businesses are actually getting ready to enter commercial leases, either because they got out of one or they were thinking of entering one, and now the real estate market has come way down, and they're thinking this is the opportunity to lock in an affordable price for a long time. These are things that we can help with. Again, the exact extent varies depending on how much of a lift you're asking for from people. If you come in with a 200 or 300 page commercial lease and you're trying to lease a 20-story building, that may not be the right fit for this program. But if we're talking about a regular small business who's leasing a storefront or even has a couple of spaces and they need to talk about the terms of the lease that they have, the terms of the lease that they would like to have, or the terms of the lease that they've been offered, these are all things that can be done through this program. Next slide, please. Labor and employment law is a very complicated subject, so I won't pretend that what we can offer is long-term compliance guidance through this, but if you have employees and you're attempting to navigate how you've handled furlough, whether or not you owe them money, whether or not you can bring them back or hire them back, given that you've now received a PPP, how all of that interacts, and also increasingly we're working towards offering how to handle health and safety requirements that are coming out, or at least to better understand them, as it is an entirely new field, and there's no guarantee that any given lawyer can give you certain answers. But at least we can try to help you work through the questions that you have in this area as a small business, or if you work with small businesses, you can recommend them to this program so that they can start to get some perspective and figure out where this lands. Next slide, please. So this is a big one right now, and it's something that I always want to hit on. If you're a small business and you have debt, any kind of debt is essentially just a contract to a lawyer, right? So you have the opportunity with any contract to renegotiate debt, to restructure that debt. And then at a certain point, you may want to talk about what is a safe closure option. That can be potentially bankruptcy. It can be wind up. It can be a negotiation with your creditors that says, I don't want to go to bankruptcy. You don't want to pay your lawyers to chase me in bankruptcy. This is what I can do, but I'm closing the business, so there won't be any more. And it's how you handle, especially thinking about your business debt versus your personal debt. These are things that we have, attorneys who specialize in this area on a very large scale, and they can help you figure out what it is that's possible for you specifically, ideally. Next slide, please. Insurance questions are pretty straightforward, but again, I'll say the key is it's always in the contract. Increasingly, there's evidence that some people may have to engage in litigation with their insurance company. Unfortunately, we can't help with that, but there are a lot of movements there. What we can do is try to set you up with someone who practices insurance law to say, I'm going to look at your contract and assess whether or not it seems like it should cover your business. That can be anything from shutdowns from COVID, government-based shutdowns, closures because you yourself don't feel that it's safe to reopen, perhaps because your landlord has closed the whole building. And that can be whether it's COVID or because there are protests and rioting in the streets. Regardless, whatever your question is about insurance, we hope that we can help figure that out. If you've sustained property damage at any point because of this situation that we're in now, then that's something that we want to try to address as well for you as a small business. Next slide, please. So that's an overview of the legal assistance that we offer. The key thing is that you'll be able to make a request. My colleague, Liz Rogers, has in the chat bar put in a link that you can click on right now to request legal assistance, as well as our other assistance that I've talked about so far with applying for PPP loans or PPP loan forgiveness. We also offer financial assistance. In particular, we look at determining the right amount you should ask for with a loan. Just because somebody comes back and says we can give you X amount of dollars doesn't mean that's a good deal for your business, especially if you're going to have to repay it on a 2, 3, 4, 5-year term, or there's a certain amount of interest in the way that that interest is handled. You want to be able to understand your own financial statements and projections. And then most of all, you need to understand how those projections, your cash flow analysis, feeds into what you should be taking on as far as debt, so that you don't take on money to stay open for 3 months, only to shoot yourself in the foot and end up having a huge debt obligation and having to close the business later. What our organization's mission is to help anyone who is otherwise traditionally underserved, who is engaged in a small business or entrepreneurship, help them to secure their personal financial stability and grow that. And so one of the places where you can hurt that yourself is where you engage in taking on debt with any sort of personal guarantee and are not prepared if you shut down the business to be able to honor that when you don't have that same cash flow going in. So it's really important to understand that relationship and talk to financial professionals sometimes to see that happening. Next slide, please. So the marketing assistance is something that we love to work with people on. Right now, it's fairly straightforward. Most people are facing similar issues. So we work on sort of webinar and boot camp basis to make sure that we answer 90% of the questions, and then we go from there to pair people off subsequently with greater assistance. But basically, this is about messaging and marketing, understanding how and you can reopen your business and what that's going to mean. And then we also have a partnership with the company GoDaddy that can help you develop a free website if you don't currently have a website to be able to sell online. Next slide, please. So that's everything that we have. The Rapid Response Program has a lot of breadth. It doesn't have, more depth than our regular services, but it can feed into the regular services. And the core here is that you don't have to ask for only one thing. Again, the link is over here in the chat box. You can go there and you can request everything we have. We can't promise you that we'll be able to get everything. We won't promise you that we'll definitely be able to get any one thing, but we've had a lot of success, especially in DC, working with the DC Bar Pro Bono Justice Center, placing nearly all or all of, especially of the legal matters and the requests for assistance and guidance around loans and grants. And of course, it starts small. Through our headquarters in New York City, we're often able to place you with financial professionals around the country or marketing professionals around the country to make sure that you get everything that you need there. The process is designed to help you cycle through based off of one request, but you're also able to add to those requests as it goes. So the most important thing I can say is either go to this link you see on the screen or to our special link just for DC through the DC Bar over here in the chat box and put in a request for assistance. If you have more specific questions or concerns before you do that, you can always email this group at response@startsmallthinkbig.org to ask specific questions about the request form or the technical side. I have our technical director, Ian Brown, on as well if there are any technical questions. And then my legal fellow will be available to answer a range of other questions. Right now, I'll try to run through what we have in the chat bar quickly. We have a few questions, I think, here. So I have a question that's very specific about getting a landlord to make a repair, and I'm afraid that we can't answer that. That would constitute specific legal advice. And I am not in a position, as I said at the beginning, to offer that today. But if you have a concern that involves landlord-tenant law, for a business and your commercial lease, then that's something that you can submit through the request form, and somebody will try to connect you with a specific type of lawyer who handles that specific type of issue, so that they can give you more specific guidance. Would you be able to support with the decision to sign an SBA loan? I won't comment on any particular loan product, and I don't believe that we ever will in the broad sense. But if what you're asking is can you get assistance looking at the financials of whether or not to sign something, or having an attorney review an actual loan agreement, then in both cases, the answer is probably yes. Without having more details specifically, I can't answer that question about your specific situation, but probably we can assist with some part of what you're looking for. Do your services partners negotiate the commercial lease for the business, or just educate the business on what the lease terms mean? So both are options. Again, this is not, we are an independent nonprofit. Our partners are primarily private sector corporate law firms who are volunteering. So nothing that we do is guaranteed. It is always going to be based on what your needs are and the capacity of the partner who is volunteering with us. With that said, we are able generally to pair people, as long as there's a good fit there, and the right volunteers are available, with someone who can offer negotiation assistance. It will depend on your specific situation and timing. At the very least, it won't just be an education what the lease terms mean, but also guidance on how to effectively negotiate. I can't promise that the lawyer that you're paired with will agree to engage in a multi-week long back and forth negotiation, with the owner of the building. But generally, we attempt to get you as much service there as possible. Are there grant options for entrepreneur who is partnered? We do not specifically dispense funds. We do have a small fund that was developed in response to COVID for our full-term partners through the Rapid Response Program, though. In order to avoid any conflict of interest with anyone who is dispensing funding, that is not what this program is. It is designed to help you assess the situation, meet with lawyers, meet with experts in other fields, so that you can build your business, protect it, and attempt to respond or even evaluate other options when it comes to grants or loans. But that isn't what the Rapid Response Program is. And do any of the emergency measures enacted potentially remove a personal guarantee in a lease when the permitted business at the location is changed by law? That is a very specific legal question, and it depends on the exact jurisdiction that you're in. So as a way to avoid getting into exact legal advice, I will say that, for instance, in New York City, there is a law that is pending with the city council that is considering doing that. So on the broad national level, the answer is maybe yes. The specifics will depend on exactly where your business is and who legislates for that business, as well as any decisions that have been issued by courts. And that's why it's so important, rather than getting legal advice in a big group like this, to sit down with someone one-on-one and be able to share with them fully the details of your business, where it's located, and then have them opine on the specific law involved there and try to get you an answer for that. What about support with contract review? Yes. Again, there are limits to what somebody can do in an hour or two with you. There are limits, unless you are a full client, to how big a contract someone can actually read through and talk through effectively. But generally speaking, yes, that is one of the core services that you can request through the Rapid Response Program, and either Start Small, Think Big or the DC Bar Pro Bono Justice Center will pair you with an expert attorney with experience reading, writing, drafting, and negotiating contracts to walk through that review with you, explain what the contract says in plain English, and flag anything that they would think would be a problem. So that is everything that I have. We're available to answer questions. And otherwise, thank you so much to our hosts.
Yeah, and this is Kate coming back in. If people continue to have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll just ask a couple more questions to wrap us up for the full group. I want to say thank you to Alex and to Elizabeth and to Ian for being here today. Yes, this deck will be available. If you registered for the event, we will send it out directly, and we will also make that available along with the recording. But back to our partners at Start Small, Think Big. One question so that everyone has a bit of sense of this. You know, how come DC businesses haven't heard of you before? You know, you've been operating for quite a bit. Can you say a little bit more about the org and how it started and how you came to be operating in DC as well?
Sure. So Start Small, Think Big was founded just 10 years ago at a folding table in front of a housing project in the Bronx. Our mission and our drive has consistently been like that of a startup where we respond to the data and the demand of people that are in need rather than customers who want to pay us a lot of money. And so to that end, in that what is for a nonprofit a fairly short amount of time, we expanded to, throughout New York City and then into Northern California, in response to the growing crisis and need by minority and women-owned businesses and traditionally underserved groups. We expanded throughout the states of New York and California, and DC was the very next market that we came into, and that has been very recent. It's something that has been on our radar for some time, but because we have been growing rapidly recently, and thanks in large part to a great deal of support and connections with our corporate partners and the strong law firm community in DC, and especially to the partnership with the DC Bar Pro Bono Justice Center that has been doing this work in DC on the legal side for some time. We were able to come in and support their efforts to scale and do this. And I'm sorry to say that it was in response to a crisis, but I'm glad that we're able to be here now helping.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And then I think just sort of the last question that I would have to wrap us up is if you have any advice for people who are thinking about pursuing pro bono, just how to think about pro bono in general. And I think you've mentioned some different aspects of this. But if businesses are reaching out and seeking pro bono support, and maybe at some point that support needs to move to low bono or to something else, just when people are approaching low bono or pro bono support, how should they be thinking about it as they look to build their businesses?
Sure. So in an ideal pro bono situation, you're treated the exact same way that a paying client is. That said, the main thing is especially for lawyers doing pro bono, is that they bill by the hour. So the difference will probably be how much time you have. When you're paying them hundreds of dollars an hour, they're available for all of the hours. Otherwise, they're available for the amount of time that they have to volunteer. And there are a lot of lawyers in the DC area who really love volunteering. The key is that you have to work really hard to make sure that you maximize the time that they have to give you. So if you have a contract, assume that you need to have identified which parts of the contract you understand and which ones you don't, to have prepped that, to have taken notes. I recommend that clients generally put together bullet points of their questions before their call, even try to share those in advance via email wherever possible, and even go ahead and use a software or print it out and circle it and scan it if you have contracts or documents saying, this is where I have a question, this is what my question is, because what you want to do with pro bono is you want to maximize every minute. That's true of your paying lawyers as well. So if you switch to low bono, you want to maximize every minute with them rather than just saying, here's a stack of things, can you just tell me what to do? Because that's not what we do as lawyers, right? Our job is to tell you what is and isn't possible. Your job is to tell us what it is that you want so that we can answer that question for you.
I want to say a really big thank you. I do not have any more general questions. We'll just make sure that no one else in the crowd has any questions. Otherwise, we are going to be making this recording available. We'll also be taking a copy of the chat in case anyone needs to get back to any of that information, and we'll be making this PowerPoint available. Thank you once again to our partners from Start Small, Think Big, and the other partners in the DC area, including the DC Pro Bono Justice Center, who are doing so much to support our small businesses right now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone.